Hey, Mr. Miles Xavier, we back up in this thing one more again.
Yes, sir.
One more again. It is the 27th episode of the All the Way Live podcast. I can't believe we made it to 27.
Whew, I'm gonna just have to trust you on that. I ain't even been counting, man. It's been too much fun. I'm just in here, back again.
Now we're high up in the 20s, and what I appreciate is just absolutely everybody for joining us onto this show. Whether it's one people, 10,000 people, 1 million people, 100 people, it don't matter to us, man. Everybody is equally as valued, and we appreciate you and welcome you to the All the Way Live podcast. Can we get a gunshot for these people, bro?
I think we can. Hold on. One time for the people. One time. What's good?
Just like that, just like that. How you feeling, Miles Xavier? How you feeling coming into this podcast today?
Ah, man, I'm feeling amazing, bro. I'm feeling amazing. I'm feeling like a lot of things are coming to fruition. A lot of seeds that have been planted. This is springtime in every sense of the word. You know what I mean? So I'm blessed. I'm blessed. How you doing?
Hey man, very much the same. And one of the things that's growing is this podcast, and we say it every week that this is intentful energy that we bring to this podcast. You know, this is just positive, good energy. And so to be able to have a space that keeps growing and more people are able to enjoy some of this energy and this positivity, for us, for me, that is an absolute blessing, man. And I come here very humbled and ready to give them that carefully curated content for their head top.
I know you do, man. I know you do. Chestnut Tones never let her down, man. You never let her down. Tell them what they're gonna get.
Hey man, and what you can get here on this podcast and how we break up this carefully curated content is by three different sections, and those sections are Stumble Upon. Now, in Stumble Upon, this is where me and Miles talk about things, thoughts, and interesting finds that we have had throughout the week. Anything that is interesting, we think about that and we bring to the people. Don't we do that for the people?
All for the people, always.
It's all for the people. And then from there, we take it to current news. Now, in current news, this is where we reach at the very tip top of what is sizzling in news. We take that, we apply our brains, we apply ourselves to it, and we break it down for y'all. And today, what we talk about, Miles?
Hey man, we got a lot to get into today, man. First of all, it's Women's Month before anything. So shout out to the ladies out there. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, let's get an air horn for the ladies one time.
There you
We're
go.
gonna get into some things, man. We're gonna get into some things with current news, but we're gonna keep it, we're gonna reserve. It's all about the ladies, it's all about safety, it's all about some things that we gotta look at that's happening in our world. So we're gonna take them where we need to take them with that one. But before that, my bro gonna give y'all the rest of the intro. What's good, man?
Hey, for sure, for sure. And the rest of the intro goes by our favorite part of the show. And now this part is recommended and reviewed. This is our favorite part because this is where we get to interact with y'all, man. This is where we take anything that you recommend, tell us to review. We give it a look, and me and Miles break it down. Now, on today's episode, people have been telling us that we got to listen to some hip hop, Miles Xavier, specifically speaking the plugs I met to Benny the Butcher.
We right in my wheelhouse with this one. We right at home. I was trying to say trap house. We right in the spot where it happened at with this one. Hip hop.
Where
That's
where else are we right at?
Hey man, we can't give them the whole location, but we're gonna let them know that we home talking about hip hop, talking about Griselda, talking about some of the ways that lyrical hip hop has managed to continue on, even if we're not as much with the college raps and the J. Cole stuff that we were previously with. But we could get, man, hip hop will always carry us away, man. Thank you for introing the show, man. I appreciate you. You got anything else? Before you know what I'm gonna do.
Hey, listen. If we've got that whole covered, again, we tell everybody, welcome, man. Turn your music up, grab a plate, make a drink, whatever the case is. We're gonna deliver to you some of this beautiful conversation, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And like my man said, you know, settle on in. We know that Joe Berg is in the building, the illustrious Gallery Momo. I wanted to add that to the intro. I think we need to shout that out. You know what I'm saying? Especially now that the art is changing in the background, man. Come on, man. We can't just keep having different art pieces. Matter of fact, before I even get into acknowledging the land that we own, tell them a little bit about that art behind you. I think that's some real shit.
Now, there's a very interesting thing that's happening in the African art scene right now, where we're having like actually young Black artists that are like becoming these art stars, right? And so this particular piece is by Nelson Makamo, who is one of those. That's one of those art stars. You know what I mean? And so it's 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 just beautiful to be in a place where you get to see homegrown artistic talent that is now making the international sphere. And one of the people that has these is your Jay-Z's and Swiss Beats and things of that nature. So it is a pleasure for us to be promoting, hosting, and showcasing super dope African art, because that is exactly what this whole show is about, celebrating Blackness.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, man. Couldn't move forward without acknowledging that space. You know, Joe Berger's in the building. Chicago is in the building. On this side, the building is in Chicago. You know what that means. This podcast is recorded on stolen land, right? This is the land of the Potawatomi people, the Council of the Three Fires. The violence that was done to them is inseparable from the state we find our city in, the state we find this country in, the state we find ourselves in. I love this city. It's beautiful to be here. It's beautiful to be talking to y'all from here. So with that in mind, we lift up the just love for indigenous people the world over, love between Black and brown people the world over. Intro over. Let's get into the show, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And getting right into the show, Mr. Miles Xavier, we got to jump right into Stumble Upon. Now, this is something that we have both stumbled upon over the week, which is that Kanye West has been said to be the richest Black man ever.
Kanye West been said to be a lot of things.
And that is some expert analysis from Miles Xavier.
I fixed my microphone.
Yeah, well, man. Is it true? Is Kanye the richest Black man in America? That's facts.
Well, it's reported that he's worth 6.6 billion. You know, over here in this show, man, we deal with facts and we don't deal with rumors. Straight facts, no rumors. So if you'd allow me to, Miles Xavier, I'd like to read something regarding Kanye West being the richest Black man ever.
Yo, nigga, your brother told us how you be all into reading and shit. Hey, that's some real good shit, my nigga, for real. Congratulations, nigga.
That being said, I'm not actually wearing my glasses. I've lost my glasses for the last 2 days, and I've been visually impaired for the whole weekend. I am struggling.
Reading don't hit the same, do it? Without the glasses. Like, I'm sure it's harder physically, like, but it also doesn't feel the same, right? It's when like something shot you. Oh, wow! Take them off. Just sit there for a second. View the world through your hindered regular eyes. Put them back on.
I love how you're making fun of my impairment right now. This is serious. I cannot see.
Yeah, and also can't get. It's hard to get into your bag, man, when you're used to having them there. But would you please, for the people, let us in, let us know what's going on anyway.
For sure. So the article, and this is coming from Forbes, says, no, Kanye West is not the richest Black person in America, and here's why. On Wednesday, multiple outlets reported that Kanye West is the richest Black person in America, worth as much as $6.6 billion. The news comes after Bloomberg reported that his sneaker brand, Yeezy, as well as Yeezy Gap, which has yet to sell one stitch of clothing. Why do they gotta say that though? Why gotta be so bogus?
Not one stitch.
Which has yet to sell one stitch of clothing, have a combined value of as much as $4.7 billion. The publication mentioned, without going into full detail, an additional $1.7 billion in assets. It's not true based on our calculations. Forbes estimates he's worth in less than a third of that, or $1.8 billion. There's a big jump from last May when Forbes first pegged his net worth to be $1.3 billion, but nowhere near as much as reported $6.6 billion.
Nowhere near. Yeah, it's a lot of spicy language in that retraction article from Forbes. But
yeah, man, we spoke a little bit off mic about how I think, you know, they could have easily vetted these numbers. They could have, but I think they just had the opportunity to release an article about Kanye, and every outlet knows that that's going to draw some eyes and some attention, right? So I'm not surprised that this is happening. Every article, every headline that come out related to Kanye, I feel like I got to take with a grain of salt. But it is interesting to understand how that mix up may have happened and how, as bogusly as they said it, a company that hasn't sold one stitch of clothing can be valued so high. How is that possible?
You see, how I take all of this is with the grain of salt that a lot of these companies are fudging their numbers. A lot of these companies are skewing the true value of their companies, the true value of their net worth. That's something that Trump has been doing for a long time as well. In order to there seems to be a lot of value behind social currency when you are of a certain figure amount. And a lot of people do not have the tools to be able to do the due diligence to check that. It's the same way that it's the same way that a lot of scams run, in the same way, where if you can portray a certain amount of confidence about what you're worth and what your net worth is, people won't double back on that and check it. So it's something that does happen a lot. So I always take that with a grain of salt, especially when you consider that there's a lot of people who are worth more than the people on these lists, but because of private reasons, do not disclose that.
It sounds like you're telling me that clout wars don't only exist in the space of social media, but also exist within the stock market. It sounds a lot like these companies are fronting. They front their moves. They're doing the money phone when they ran money. That's what it looked like. That's what it sounded like. What you're saying to me.
It's definitely the case. It's definitely the case, and there's a lot of financial incentives to be able to do that. I mean, again, a lot. There's a lot of value that's held behind being perceived to be of a certain stature. If you watch, there's a great TV show on Netflix about the Indian billionaires. I think it might actually be called Indian Billionaires. I'm not sure.
Right to the point. right to the point without time.
Right to the point. But it touches on that same concept of what being perceived to have a certain value of wealth allows you to be able to access. These guys were able to tap into bigger loans from the government, bigger state loans, siphoning off a lot of those loans and things of that nature. So from a business perspective, there's a lot of value in having that clout, and it's rampant. It's rampant. There's a lot of cap for sure.
So with that much cap in the system, with so many numbers being tossed around and flying around, what does it mean to own a company, a corporation, an entity, versus to have equity in it when so much of the numbers that we're seeing, valuations for companies, valuations for ideas, concepts, are so easily inflated and manipulated?
And that touches on the whole conversation about what equity is. And it's such a relevant conversation because we're seeing a lot of people utilize that right now. There's something fascinating that happens in hip hop culture, and it kind of like always falls into what's popular in corporate culture. But there's always certain terminologies. Before it was own my masters, and then it became partnership, and then it became independence, and then now it's equity. There's always certain words that seem to dominate the lexicon of hip hop business, right? And equity is now one of those words. So we see.
I love that you pointed out that pattern. It's really funny to be able to kind of zoom out and look over time at those different buzzwords that have come to the forefront of the culture and really examine it from the perspective of like, that's a good thing, right? Even if not everybody hashtagging each of those words as that became a thing, like understands the full concept and is actively executing that in their business ventures. It's amazing that people are latching onto these ideas and thinking of themselves as being empowered and in an entrepreneurial sense.
Yeah, for sure. So if we're touching on what equity is, then that is a certain share that is it's a share that makes up the total ownership of a company. So if you have equity within a company, you have share ownership of that company based on whatever percentage it is that you either acquired, that you acquired in any sense. And this could be by merger, this could be by acquisition, this could be via just straight out purchasing. Those are things that exist as well. So that's when people speak equity, that is the business technical term of it.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, it's like it's actually it's is it ownership of shares, right? Of a certain portion of that company's shares and a certain rights to decision making as a significant shareholder on that company's board. Is that kind of part of what you would feel like equity in the most general sense would entail? Different deals for different types of mergers and allowing for that.
For sure. And I mean, and we can speak about, let's say, if we had to utilize examples that are familiar and examples that are relevant, we can utilize the example of, let's say, the foundation that we are both part owners in, right? Which is that we each have equity into this organization that we have. And so there's shares that each of us hold that make up the total value. When we put everybody that has shares together, the total value of what that company does and what that company is valued at. And so from there, we get things such as remittances, things such as dividends. These are payments that various shareholders hold. But the best thing about equity is that it allows you then, well, it should ideally allow you the opportunity to participate in the decision making of the company that you have that equity in.
So trying to even relate that even further to like some examples and some things we've talked about right here in this space, right? Like, so Jay-Z selling Tidal to Square, right? Owned by Jack Dorsey, who operates Twitter first. And that sale of that company that he owned, allowing him a position on the board, essentially what he traded was the ownership of his company for decision-making and a financial investment in this larger company that his previous company would still be a subsidiary of, but now he's able to, make decisions that both affect that company and be a part of this larger board.
Precisely.
Correct?
Precisely, right? And so,
Ish.
Go ahead.
And so, yeah, my next question even was just going to be, how do you see the trade-off with ownership of that smaller subsidiary versus decision-making capability, but not potentially not ownership in that larger entity?
So it's the question of where does the value lie, right? Is the value being a bigger fish in a smaller pond, or is the value being a small fish in an ocean? And that's a decision that every entrepreneur, every businessman has to make at some point, is to say, what is the maximum capacity that this organization can operate at, and what does it take to be able to get it to that point? Or do we have the resources internally to be able to push it to that point? And there are instances where not selling your equity or diluting your shares it makes more sense in the long haul, right? Such examples would be if, for instance, you foresee the company becoming increasingly more valuable later in the future, and you would not like to place the value of the shares that you sell right now because of that value that's of what you see the value to be, and you can then push along until you get to that point. All to say, it's a conversation more so about what is the intention of the company and what is the value of reaching the goals of the company.
Yeah, I appreciate you breaking that down. I think you're bringing me and a few other people, whoever might be listening, up from that state of being able to hashtag equity to kind of understanding what it is. And I posed the question to you that way because I see a lot of entrepreneurs that are making major moves that are much deeper in the game than me, selling their company for equity in a larger company. So another recent example is Swizz Beatz and Timbaland selling Versus to Triller. And so now they have seats on the board of Triller. By the way, all the people who participated in Versus, all the artists who've done a Versus, which was a series of popular artists playing their songs against, but more of in a celebratory way with one another on Instagram and Apple Music. And so all the artists who participated also got a small piece of equity in Triller, which is definitely expanded by the acquisition of Versus. So seeing just these deals like that and these major moves is just got me kind of my gears turning as to, as we transition kind of from that ownership to equity and just understanding that transition and what people's options are and the moves being made.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, it does open up to it does open people's eyes to the different types of tools that you can utilize in order to gain access to finances and to grow your company. It's important, because these tools are available for us to be able to use. It's a matter of exposure and understanding that option is there. There's many ways that we can put business deals together, many ways that we can structure access to capital and growth and growth objectives, things of that nature. There's a lot of very, very cool things that you can utilize. And if people now know that, hey man, I can sell a portion of my company to a bigger company, make cash, and then be able to also give the people that help build this company equity into this bigger company. That is an option that you can do. And in this podcast, we fully endorse independence. We fully endorse community support. So, hey, people, know how you can help your people.
Yeah, we fully support options, and options come from understanding. So yeah, I think another thing people might know is that y'all might be able to turn to us a little bit, tell y'all a little something about this business thing here. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's too deep for the intro. That's too deep for the intro. You know what I'm saying? I think we done probably just stumbled upon topic. What you think, sir?
Oh, most definitely. And if that's the case and we're about to surf on into the next wave of conversation, we're getting into the current news.
What's good? So you want to introduce this or should I?
So the conversation today is a heavy conversation that we acknowledge. And, I think it's important to let know that our joyful demeanor does not take away from the seriousness of this conversation about gender-based violence and abuse against women. So it's a conversation that we've intentionally have given space for, a conversation that we've intentionally planned to get to, so that we can expose ourselves to all the relevant informations and whatnot. But I just wanted it to be clear that it's not there's intention behind this conversation, and that our demeanor should not be taken in any other way than this being very meaningful and serious to us.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you setting the tone for the conversation, because there does come a certain responsibility with, first of all, handing topics that are very serious, but with spouting off at the mouth. Nobody asked us to talk. We brought this to y'all just because we hope it makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, or it makes you feel seen when it's difficult. And so, and taking that on, we want to be careful about how we approach things. And also just acknowledge, right, the space and the context. So it's Women's Month, and I can't say that enough. Like, we need to make that a real thing. We need to increasingly celebrate that every year. And as far as a Women's Month goes, there have been a lot that has concerned the women in my life.
Before we get there, let's get some air horns for Women's Month, please. The few air horns.
You right about it. Right about
Big up.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man. So have you noticed that? Or I mean, it don't even have to be a recent thing. It's just a thing, man. Women are not feeling safe out here.
If we set the context for it, is that we were compelled by the shootings that happened in Atlanta, where 8 people were killed in Atlanta, 6 of those 8 being Asian women of Asian descent, and undoubtedly is a hate crime, and it's a crime against women, and similarly in London as well, if you can touch on that.
Yeah, so in London there was a woman, her name was Sarah Everard, and she went missing a couple of weeks ago, and she was found recently. Her remains were found, and it was one of those stories where she's a white woman, and a lot of my friends of color and women of color were following the story, and I think part of that is because it even speaks to, like, if you're a woman, you're, even being white doesn't protect you from gender-based violence, right? And so for her to be found not okay, I think was reinforcing the idea for a lot of women that women are constantly put into situations where they feel uncomfortable, right? And there are various levels to that. I think a big reason why a lot of the women I know were following the story of Meghan Markle and the royal family so closely was because it was a woman, in that case, a woman of color, right, that was in a situation where she was not being protected, where her children were not going to be protected because of her color and her status as a woman. And so it's amazing that women are speaking out. And I think a part of the conversation that needs to be had is a conversation by men about why women feel unsafe and what we need to do, acknowledge, and unlearn to change that.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of unlearning that needs to be done, but I like how you have put the responsibility of that unlearning and of that change to be placed on men, which is what it should be. You know, the concept of expecting women to be the ones that help us fix these problems is something that it's an expectation that a lot of men walk around with, and it's completely false. You know, and so it's it you have to realize that this unsafeness that we're saying women feel now is actually an unsafeness that women have felt for a very long time, and that comes directly from the actions and decisions and let's say the lack of repercussion that comes with the many ways in which men interact with women, and having and watching my youngest sister come into her own as a woman, and my girlfriend, my my mother, just watching the women in my life interact with the world, you recognize there's a very clear instinctual anxiety at how to approach it, because at any moment you could be, at any moment you could be a victim of somebody's impulses, as they labeled the shooter in Atlanta, or ridicule, right, or humiliation, which are things that happen all the time. It's quite frankly disgusting, bro.
Yeah, man. I want to point out a common theme and something that you touched on is that the lack of accountability, the lack of repercussions, right? The murderers of Breonna Taylor still haven't been brought to justice, right? The fact that, you know, it was and that's definitely connected to the fact that the person arrested of suspected of killing this woman in London was a police officer, right? Like there's even the people that are put in place to protect us, right? Certainly as Black men, we know that doesn't include us, but it's certainly, there are certainly, women have reason to believe that they're not always going to be protected by those people as well. And then when we talk about, bringing it back to the conversation of stopping Asian hate and what happened in Atlanta, the fact that law enforcement was a part of talking down what happened, right? Saying that he had a bad day, right? Saying he was at the end of his rope, making all the excuses for why this man would go out and kill these Asian people, downplaying the race aspect of it, right? And so this is an institutional problem, and that's partly because men have dominated the institutions that govern our lives. And so we have to acknowledge it as such and begin to dismantle it by having conversations and being real about our role in it. Do you check your homies? Do you check the way that you talk to women? Do you double think now as a grown man, depending on how old you are listening to this, right? Like as someone who aspires to be a good man or identifying as a man, right? Like how do you approach women, and has that changed and are you listening to the women in your life?
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm realizing that has come with a lot of men, and something that I had to confront within myself as well, is that we very quickly it's very easy for us to look out to see what predators are doing, but not check ourselves for what we're doing and the things that we have normalized that could be considered predatory or can put women in uncomfortable situations. Abuse happens in many different types of forms. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's financial, it's psychological. There's many different types of abuses that people can, that people utilize to be able to 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 project violence on women, essentially what it becomes. And it's very touching, especially being in South Africa, because this is a country where over half of the women that are killed a year are women that are killed at the hands of somebody that's close to them, at the hands of an intimate partner. This is a country where the rape rate is through the roof. It is it is quite serious. It is absolutely quite serious. And a a statistic, let me not say a statistic, but a theory, a comparison, better yet, that somebody made recently said that if apartheid in South Africa had to be measured in terms of how many people were actively under the control and were actively being oppressed, and for the length that they were being oppressed at, then you can compare what is happening to women right now to actually be on a bigger impact side of even the apartheid government. Now, it's a wild take, but it does force you to look at those two things next to each other in terms of the scale and in terms of how bad this situation is.
And I think it also just makes you take a look at the structural aspect of these issues, right? So when you put sexism and racism next to each other, a lot of what they have in common is the fact that they're reinforced by people in power, right? So we have to, in bringing that all the way down to the individual level, how do I address this? How do I check myself? What are the things that we believe and that we feel that allow us to make excuses for treating other people differently than we would want to be treated, right? Whether that's on the basis of race, this person has been othered in some way, this person, and this speaks to the danger of rhetoric, right? When Trump says that China is responsible to the virus of COVID-19, now you have people walking around excusing themselves from treating people that they perceive to be of Asian descent differently because, well, y'all are responsible for this, right? In the same way that Black people have always been criminalized, and to excuse white people from, we treat Black people this way because Black people kill themselves and are lazy and are unable to hold jobs and suck from the welfare system, right? So it's we have to understand that you're being fed nonsense, you're being fed hate, and understand where it's coming from and unlearn it, and understand that none of those things that excuse you or that might excuse you, that you feel give you reason to treat somebody else differently, are not real. You know what I mean? And it's far more important than any of what you're believing, news story you read, headline, to treat everybody as human first, period.
Yeah, and also making women feel uncomfortable is corny. Invading a woman's private space is corny. Trying to force yourself onto a woman is corny. All of that, and it's important to be able to call out that a lot of dudes is moving extremely, extremely corny, and hiding behind the guise of it's banter or being playful. Nothing is funny about it, especially if the only one laughing and somebody else on the other side of it feels uncomfortable. Um, Men have to not even force it. Men have to understand that you have to be invited into somebody's presence. I don't care if it's a woman or a man. Somebody has to invite you into their presence and invite you into conversation with them. Right now, granted, there are situations that there are circumstantial situations where the invitation might not necessarily be overt, but it's still important to keep comfort, to keep respect at the forefront at how we engage with women, and understand that we have to be invited into their presence, because how we're operating right now is detrimental to women. They're getting killed, they're getting raped, they're uncomfortable, they're feeling scared throughout the board.
Yeah, and I think it's important to acknowledge that yes, we are moving the goalpost purposefully. It was in the wrong place. The way that we were moving before is not how we should move, right? And the way that how comfortable we've gotten, expecting women to deal with guys being guys, whatever that means, right? Is not correct, right? So we are, yes, what that bullshit you did before is not okay now. Don't do it, and unlearn why you think that you thought you were cool doing that. And I think it's just important to acknowledge that we're holding ourselves to a higher standard. Yeah, get with it, or get locked up. I don't know. Well, not locked up, because we are examining what the police doing too, but get restorative justicized or something.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out what to do with y'all too. We can walk with you, girl.
Yeah.
But real
and
talk,
anybody,
man,
and all the men that wonder what, like, if you claim to be an ally and you agree with the values of protecting women and making women feel comfortable and safe, then what you can do is ensure that that's how you move at all times, and also try and judge and also try and change the way that you interact with people, with women. Be very open to listening. First of all, be very open to listening,
Yes.
and also realize that sometimes the conversation is not there for a man to solve a solution for, but the best thing that they can do is listen. That's very important. And also check your friends, check your, not just your friends, your family members. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's important to know that it's tough for sure. Checking your family members about a lot of the creepy things that they're doing is tough. Checking your friends about it is tough. We know this. You know this, but it's still something that but how tough is that compared to being fearful of your life all the time?
Perfect. I think you put the nail on the head, man. Allyship is a verb, so you can't call yourself an ally if you're not doing nothing. You know what I mean? And a big thing that you gotta do is shut up actively. Lift up the voices of women, because the more we listen to them, the more they're saying things need to change, and we have to make that change, right? So be about listening and do what women say. Listen to women.
Yeah.
I flew in from Houston.
Miles Xavier.
That's my type of thing right there. That's my type of thing.
Back in it again, man. We punching in, back in it again. Thank you for joining us, rocking with us, etc., etc. We're gonna switch the vibe up, switch the speed up, and get into recommended and review.
Yes, sir. Had to change the BPM right quick to Griselda.
The people want us to talk about it, Miles Xavier. Can you break it down exactly what it is that the people would like for us to talk about?
Well, my main man, Benny the Butcher, that my guy. That might be, he definitely my top 3 artists right now. Top 3 and not 3.
Okay.
Dropped an outstanding project, a follow-up to the mixtape hit, The Plugs I Met, the carefully, thoughtfully monikered Plugs I Met Too.
Yeah.
That go hard, man.
That's good music, brother. That's nothing but good hip hop right there. Harry Fraud. Wow. Outstanding production.
Yeah, man. Harry Fraud, definitely a word that my brother often uses to describe Griselda, the collective, the producers that surround that sound is cinematic. And I think that this mixtape, this project, emphasizes and epitomizes that to a T. You know what I mean? From the moment you turn it on, when Tony met Sosa, it does feel like you're watching a mob movie. As you progress through the tracks, the different layered pianos, the different cinematic is for sure the word.
Yeah. I will say that this album I had to listen to in the right setting. I had to plug it into different settings. I first listened to it on my headphones while I was tending to my plants. It wasn't the vibe for it. Then I had to switch it up, throw it on in the whip, and then it started making a lot more sense. Playing music in different spaces, which is definitely a thing, by the way.
Absolutely a thing. For me, this I think the first place I played it was so music drops on Friday. Wake up first thing in the morning, hooked it up to my Bluetooth. I think I was playing it as I was, getting ready, getting dressed and stuff. And it was like, man, I was just, yeah. It was. I let it run 3 more times, man. 2 more times. This is the first album that I've done that with in a long time, where I heard it and immediately was like, nah, I gotta hear the whole thing again. Not just that track I thought was good. Run the whole thing back. And then again, man. So this one definitely hit me. And then I had the opportunity yesterday, went to go get some nachos all the way from downtown, from the south side, just because I wanted to be able to cruise up Lakeshore, listening to some new music in the whip. And this, I didn't play nothing else. I started with this and didn't play nothing else. There, got the nachos, came back, put the same thing on, listened to the whole album all the way through, man. This one has a lot of replay value for me. I love the when they get real, just I keep coming back to the word cinematic, but the strings, the piano, when they paint the picture, when everything is so reminiscent of uh, uh of luxury and sounds luxurious and sounds spacious. It sounds like a dinner that's black tie. It sounds like, you know, someone showing you, walking you through a house that neither of us could afford. You know what I mean? It's a I
Yeah,
so many good things to say about it. I love it.
it
It's an experience. It's an experience. I'll put it like that.
that's a I like that word. I like that word more. Experience, and I think it speaks to the quality of where hip hop is right now. Granted that there's a lot of filler in it, but there is also a resurgence of just this beautifully crafted music. I mean, I think the production on this album is what is the most outstanding portion of it. I think Harry Fraud is he walks. It's not a competition in that sense, but in this particular body of work, the production value of it, I think, exceeds even the lyrical content of it because Harry Fraud specializes in this cinematic, open, open world of music. And so, when we first heard about it, I remember I texted you. I was like, "Hey, bro, Plugs I Met 2 with Harry Fraud is coming out," and you know, I think we both were like, "We're not going to put any expectations on it per se." But in terms of how it turned out, it is as big and grand and elaborate as I would have liked for it to be.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And when you talk about like the direction that hip hop is going in, I think it's really cool to see some of the more, uh, for lack of a better word, gangster rap be the bed or the showcase for this amazing production, right? It's always cool to hear Soundwave and Thundercat go crazy and let Kendrick rap over it. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Or to hear even a Royce the 9-5 grow as a producer and make something dope.
5'9".
Oh, I always do that. That's because I'll be working 9 to 5 and 5 to 9. You know what I'm saying? I'll be on it. So I'll be getting those. Yeah, they reciprocal, like the yin and yang for me. But Royce the 5'9", growing as a producer, and putting together something amazing like the Allegory. I love to hear that, but I also just think it's really dope to understand that beautiful music can be made with grimy rap over it. And that's where I'll push back and say that a lot of the reason I will return to this project is because of Benny, the charisma that he brings, and that he the sauce. It's all sauce on all of those tracks. You know what I mean? In this game, and it sounds and it's mature, right? Even if the content is, you know, very much. And you know what? I won't even say that the content is as drug centric as a lot of their previous music, because it's more, as he points out in the album, he's glorifying from how far they came, and it's true as it echoes. It's not. It's the metaphors that involve drugs are lamented. You know what I mean? There, it's an homage to a life that brought him something better, and an acknowledgement, and not a glorification of any of those things. And you have to be listening harder than I think a lot of people listen to rap these days to get that. But it's so very worth it. I think the marriage between Benny's vocals, lyrics, charisma, and just the beautiful landscape that the canvas that Fraud lays out for him to paint on is amazing. This record is, I can't say it enough. There's been a lot of cool music that's come out, a lot of dope singles, a lot of underground artists that have really inspired and surprised me. But no bodies of work like this I didn't have to push myself to play again. This
Yeah.
gets a lot of rotation from me.
Now this brings up a controversial conversation that we have to have, which is out of the Griselda camp. Where does this album put Benny in terms of roster position? Because on top of that list, with the last body of work that he did, Conway the Machine is also a problem.
Yeah, I don't think if you didn't already have Benny at number one, I don't know if this does it for you, because it's more of him showing his versatility. I think a lot of the people that have Conway at number one have him there because of his consistency, how he's continued to deliver grimy music, how he's continued to make offbeat rhyme schemes sound like music that, you know, fits right in our playlist and our iTunes, and has a dope energy that kind of surpasses the bubble of where boom bap and that hard shit usually stays. But I think they love that consistency of them, and I think the people who love Benny and were even liked Burden of Proof a little bit more and have put him at number one are the people that are enjoying that versatility. And for the people that are on the train of versatility, I think this was exciting for them. But I don't know if it won anybody over. I'm not mad at you, whoever you put at the front of Griselda, even if it's Westside, for his charisma and for being the boss mind that helps kind of put this stuff together, man. It's an amazing collective. Shout out to them, and let them know that we coming. People going to be talking about us this way very soon. Live House is coming for that Griselda spot as a collective. Speaking it into existence.
You know what it is. You know what it is. Nah, that's a great review, I think. And again, it's good to see good hip hop coming out. Real hip hop is becoming cool and it's taking the main stage. There's a lot of filler, but even that filler is filled by, you know, the baby. I'll take it, the baby, if that's gonna be my hip hop pop star.
Hey man, we if the ladies like it, I love it.
And what we do know, Miles Xavier, is that we know.
Oh yeah, we know, we aware. It's for sure. It's like, man, it's crazy. It's actually crazy. Like, I know you know.
But do they know what you know?
Oh, I think they know too. They know. They see it, man. They had to get here, bro. In order to even get here, you have to know that you had so many choices, so many options when it comes to choosing a podcast. And yeah, here you are. Especially you at the end. Oh man, this is like
gunshots for the people that made it to the end, please.
Gunshots for the people that made it to the end.
Go and big up yourself.
You know what I'm saying? But no, that's actually important, man. Whoever's rocking with us this far, we appreciate y'all. And Zoe, I appreciate you, man. We out here.
One gunshot for yourself, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm out here. Listen, y'all got a lot of choices, man. Y'all could have buckled y'all seatbelts in and flown with a lot of different airlines to get y'all through the day, but y'all rocking with All the Way Live. You rock with a celebration of life. You're rocking with a celebration of celebrating. You're rocking with a celebration of how good it feels to be black. Don't it feel good?
Oh, my favorite thing. My favorite thing.
Listen, eat something delicious. Hug somebody you love. Take care of yourself. Be kind to women. Stop Asian hate. Water. We gone.